Greetings and good morning. We're going to go through some of these practice quizzes and see what we can uncover as far as practice for the chapter 10 and 11 quiz. This next video or so will be just the chapter 11 questions. Number 1 starts off with asking what is not a reason for actual results deviating from planned performance. So this is definitely a budget type question, and we see that the answer A, bottom-up approach to budgeting, was used. That's one of the reasons why this is a correct answer is because we learned in class that indeed the bottom-up approach is a really good way to do budgeting. So that obviously is not going to be a reason for results deviating from planned performance. Let's see the other answers. Managers have done a particularly good or bad job. Yeah, that could have budget results different from planned budgeting. C, conditions have changed. That's a reason they can deviate. D, the budget was poorly conceived. Yeah, that's a reason. So A is not an expectation of why we should have differences between the budgeted numbers and the actual. So A is just, again, we learned that's like the not golden, but like a sweet spot when it comes to doing budgets. Ace Ladders, number 2, has fewer units in beginning finished goods inventory than in ending. The number of units sold is, and we're going to have to see what this all means in terms of the equation. That's the best way to answer this. And the equation works like the following. You start with the beginning amount in inventory. So that'll be a certain number. You add in what you purchase. So that'll be some other number. So let's make some, so that's one number, then you're going to add, and then you're going to sell, which will be cost of goods sold, or let's write it this way instead. Let's write it as units sold. Remember, this is what's happening. Units sold. And maybe that is a Y. So you subtract that Y from everything, and you're going to get your ending inventory amount, which we'll call Z, ending inventory amount. So this number here is a subtraction. We're adding purchases, subtracting units, and coming up with our ending number here. All right, so if the units in the beginning finished goods inventory is less than the ending, so if this number, let's call it, like the way I like to do these kinds of problems is throw some numbers in. So let's say this is 100. So the units in the beginning finished goods inventory is 100, and the ending goods inventory is 110. That sets us up with the exact parameters of the problem. And then what we could do is continue the what-if analysis. Let's add 1,000 as purchased, just throwing this out to the top of my head. And so we'll wind up with 1,100 as available. And the number of units sold will be the missing link in this point of the equation. I'm going to write this out in one more way in a second. So in order to get to 110 as our answer, the amount that we have to subtract in order to get there would be, in this hypothetical example, 990 units. So I'm going to do this one more time so you can see it better. 900, that's the answer of X in this little equation of what number do you need to subtract from 1,100 to get to 110. So if you take 1,100, subtract 990 as being the units sold, you'll indeed wind up with 110 units left, which is the ending inventory. So now, taking this logic of what we see here, it goes back to the number of units sold is, and let's clear the deck. I'm going to clear part of the deck so we can see what the choices are. The number, what they want to know is that if fewer units in the beginning, just like we worked out, than in ending, what does it mean in terms of the number of units sold? Are they less than the number of units produced? Well, I took the numbers away, but indeed they were, because we had purchased 1,000 and the amount sold was 990. So that seems to be a true statement. And what you could do is you could say, well, I think you just got lucky with your example, so go ahead and throw in a whole bunch of other scenarios the same way, or look at it mathematically. You'll see the proof is in the equation. How is the proof in the equation? Well, hold on. Let's clear the deck and look at the equation on a fresh page. So the equation is the following: beginning plus purchase minus sold equals ending. So let's see if we can do a little bit of mathematics here. Or maybe just take a look at the equation and do without doing the math per se, like the way mathematicians might do a proof. Let's just look at it logically. If the beginning plus the purchases minus the amount sold equals the ending inventory, and if this number is, as the problem says, less than, meaning it's smaller, so we'll do it like this, less than the ending inventory. The only way you're going to get there, because you're going to add in some purchases, means that the amount sold has to be less than the amount purchased in order for that to work out. It's just a logical deduction. So that's why the number of units sold has to be less than the number of units added. All right, take a look at it. If you're not a math whiz like I am not, then you can just look at it and it'll start to come to you logically. Or as you see, by my putting in hypothetical numbers, I can get to the answer. All right, let's do number 3. Sales. Let's see what they're asking for. How much is the total cash collected? Okay, so this is just a looking at cash problem. That's all we want to know. And here's the month of August. What are they telling us about August? Let's read the problem. Sales are 32% cash, 68% credit. Of the credit sales, this is how they collect. 40% there, 45% in the next month, and 50% in 2 months after. All right, so what does that mean in terms of cash collected during August? The sales for August was this number. That's the sales. So that 32% of that is cash. So that's collected in August. That's collected in August. So of the 150 August sales, 32% of it is cash. So let's do the math. That's 48. We'll write that down here. And we'll say that's for August. Now, that's all the cash they get for August sales. But what about July sales? How much cash do they get for July sales? Well, they get a certain amount of cash in July, but 68% of it was credit, and that 68% that was credit in July gets collected in August. At least 40% gets credited in, or 40% is in the month of sale. So that means that, let's go back. Let me say it again, getting the problem straight. Of the sales in July, 32% was in cash, 68% credit, but of that, 40% was actually collected in July, but another 45% of the credit sales was collected in August. So that's what we're after, the 45% that was collected in August of the July sales. So let's now do July. July will look like this. They had 120,000 of sales, 32% was cash, which would be 38,400. So that was in July, 38,400. Of the remaining amount, which would have been 68%, or 81,600, 40% of it was cash collected in the same month, meaning July. So we take 40% of 81,600, which is 32,640, and that was collected in July. 45% of this number was collected in August. That's what we're really interested in. So 45% of that is I'm sorry, not 45% of 8160, 45%, yeah, 45% of 8160, this is the credit sales. So 45% of that number, credit sales of July, and 45% was collected in August. So now, August additional one for the amount of sales collected from July sales in August, which is 45%, is 36,720. Now we do the same thing for June. I'm going to make some erasers here so we can see June. In June, 68% of the 200 was credit sales. 40% of that was collected. 40% of this 136 credit sales was collected in the next month, but that's July. And then in June, they collected 15% from the June credit sales. So 15% of the number of 136 is equal to 20,400. So we'll call this August 2. 20,400. Add them all up, do the math, and you'll get an interesting number. I'm going to do that right now. Oops, that's always a problem. Get 105, 120. So far, so good. And what did we miss? We missed that although this here is the cash sales for August, we learned through going through the problem, 40% of the credit sales in August is also collected. So for the sales going back to August, 150, 68% of that was credit sales, which means the number would have been 102. 40% of that was collected in August. So 40% of that number is 40,800. So that's also August. So now we add that to our total. And we're going to get up to a new number, 36,720, 20,400. Now we're at 145,920, which is the right answer. And bingo, now we can go back and do that problem for any month, and we know exactly what we're doing. All right.